But then you got to address some kind of
Good evening, everybody.
And address me back to the fact, yeah, I can, and I'm going to respond to it, but I'm going to stick with my points.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Today is May the 9th, 2019, and this is a meeting of the Rochester City School District Board of Education. Thank you for turning out tonight. We appreciate your attendance. And it's also good, on behalf of the board, that we see so many young people today. And we're going to see some of those young people's talents and commitment to this district, again, on full display. So thank you. And give yourselves a round of applause. You know, we try every meeting, and we're pretty successful of it in citing the Pledge of Allegiance. And since I became president, I always try to have a young person lead the pledge. Is there any young person? Carlos, you're not young enough. I know you think you're young, but you're not that young. I'm talking about somebody maybe who's still in school. Any young person who would like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance? Raise your hand. I see the young lady right back there in the middle. Since you're in the middle, come on up. Give her a round of applause. Why don't you go over there, ma'am? Why don't you go over there to the mic? Now, as you go over there, did I hear some young person over here say, "Aw"? Who? This young? Okay, all right. Listen, this is a big country, and it wouldn't hurt us to say the pledge twice. So she's gonna say it, and then we're gonna have you come up, and you're gonna say it. All right? Huh? Oh man. A family saying the pledge. All right. Oh, okay. All right, young lady, what is your name? Where do you go to school? Where do you go to school?
Montessori Academy.
All right, let's give her a round of applause, this brave young lady. All right, so we're all gonna stand up, and those who choose to do so, and we're gonna go along with this young lady and cite the Pledge of Allegiance. Whenever you're ready, young lady.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Man, she did a great job. Did you hear her? Awesome. Thank you very much. Are your parents here, your family here? Where are they? Stand up. Let's give them a round of applause. All right. Thank you for coming. All right, the next item on our agenda is so long as there's no objection from my colleagues, we have, I'm gonna move stuff around here. Since we have so many young people, and I know they have homework to do and exams to prepare for, as do their families, we're going to begin with the portion of the agenda that recognizes their involvement, and we'll begin with recognition of RIA, Rochester International Academy. Dan, are you gonna?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, President Wade. A couple of weeks ago, we heard the drum and choral ensemble, and we thought it'd be great to invite them to a board meeting and have them perform. But since then, they have received an award. And the award is that they are one of the 5 best programs for students coming to the United States, not just in New York State, but in the entire country. So let's give them a big hand. So would you come on up, and we're looking forward to your performance.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know why you ask, but okay.
You're really surprised, right?
Okay, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mary Coach Montesano Diaz. I'm the founding principal of the Rochester International Academy, and I am extremely blessed to work there every day. We are a family, staff, advisory board members, community members. Will you please stand? We come deep. Leah Festus, now will you please stand because you were with us that first year. Thank you. So, board members, I can't do anything without the people around me. I'm only as strong as our family, but the most important people at RIA are the students. And you know, we talk about walk the talk. Well, sometimes you have to drum the drum and do the dance and dance the dance, right? And my students are absolutely amazing. I want to give your attention to Ricardo here in Ndule. Ricardo graduated last year. Stand up, Ricardo. They can't see you, baby. And he is finishing his first year in college, and he actually wrote our school song. You'll hear that. You'll also see talking drums. You'll see a little bit of the dance, and this is only a little bit of what we do. And again, Mr. Hillman, music teacher, Ms. Heyman, music teacher, we knew that we didn't know a whole lot about this, but when our students said they wanted it, they found a way to make it happen. But nothing happens without all of my staff, all the community, everyone that's a part of RIA. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. This award is not just for us, it's for all of us, but it's really for my students. So enjoy.
Yeah.
point of personal privilege, Mr. President.
Go ahead. Yep.
I'm just proud to say that I'm the board liaison to RIA. I love them. I just remember when we first approved the RIA Academy that I said to Mary, I said, you make sure you take care of my babies. I said that back in 2007, 8, somewhere around there. And let me just say she's done that. And I'm so proud of the work that her and her team has done over there, the commitment to our students who are not from this country, and to help them to transition into society with all of the trauma that they have endured. You don't even have a clue of the trauma that some of our students have experienced, but they're excelling in this nation. And so I just wanted to, as the board liaison to RIA, to just give my heartfelt appreciation. And I remember when I did a visit, there was some person that had rated you negatively, rated the school negatively. I don't remember all the details, but look at God, #1 in the nation. #1 in the nation. And so I thank you so very much for all of your work and all of the team's work. It really means a lot to this board and to our superintendent, and keep making us look good. So thank you so very much. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, as I indicated, we moved the agenda around a little bit, so long as there's no objection. Dr. Nelms also has to deliver a report, but he has young people involved along with parents, so I'm going to move his portion of the agenda up as well. Dr. Nelms.
Thank you. Good evening, board and community. Typically, I follow the speaker's agenda. Right. How much would I follow that every week? Yeah, right. That's real positive energy, and I'm appreciative of what RIA has done as well. So for tonight's presentation, if we can have the slides. I want to also take tonight to thank and acknowledge a few individuals, starting with student recognitions for 2. The one is Miss Bria Adams. Bria, could you please stand with your parents, please, and just wave? I want to tell a story about Bria and her parents, if I can just take a couple minutes. So one day in my office, I have Bria, you guys can sit down. I had Bria and her dad and her mom stop in. They said, we want to speak to you. Now, it's important to note that I had seen her parents at many of our meetings because they're really active in our parent group. But I could tell by his look, this is a different type of meeting. And he said, we need to talk. And I said, absolutely, come on in. And he sat down and he started to question an assignment that Bria had written and the teacher's interpretation of that assignment and the feedback that she had received. And he wasn't upset about it. He didn't come in demanding anyone's head. He said, I want to have an opportunity to have my daughter's voice be honored and for the teacher to understand her perspective. This is around the Black Lives Matter movement. And so Bria said, I said, Bria, I want to hear from you. So Bria showed me her essay, showed me the feedback, and then came in and said, and this is why I wrote this, and this is how I would expect the teacher to respond. It was probably one of the most positive parent meetings I've ever had, because as a true partner, the parents said, we're going to help the school be better at serving all children, but we're going to put our daughter as the face of that change. Bria and the teacher met again. They agreed to get I gave them a couple of books for the teacher and the books for Bria from the Read Together about historical perspectives and how people of color in particular are represented and how their voices are sometimes marginalized. And to my knowledge, the teacher and Bria have remained very close, and there were some connections that were created there. But more importantly, Bria since then has been one of the lead writers in our school newspaper because she is a wonderful writer who is not sharing her talent. When I saw her essay, I said, why aren't you writing for our school newspaper? She since have written an article for the city newspaper, And her most recent accomplishment is being the youngest recipient of the Jean Bartlett Sally Dodgkin Woman of Vision Award, which she'll be receiving. This is a community award that's rarely given out to youth, and her writing and her social justice and advocacy sets her apart from many students. And I told Bria this in private, and I'll say it public. I just hope one day my daughter, who's a sophomore in high school, will have the same type of tenacity that you demonstrate daily and the same focus on social justice. So a lot of credit goes to your parents, a lot of credit goes to that teacher for giving you the opportunity to teach her about your authentic voice, but more importantly, East and this entire community benefits from your tenacity. So thank you, Bria, we love you, and good luck with your award ceremony this week. I don't have seen Colin yet. The second student recognition is, I think it's over to the left, is Colin, who I heard lost a battle with a baseball, in a baseball game today, right? Got hit in the face with a mitt. But Colin is one of another young man who has done incredible things in literacy. I've shared with the board in the past our involvement with Read 180, a company that's helped us address some of the literacy issues that we face within urban schools, particularly in Rochester. And to our surprise, Colin submitted an essay, a national essay, and he was one of 16 students across the country to be recognized for his accomplishments and his growth in literacy and his ability to read not just at, but above grade level. And that was a long journey for him. And Colin, I want to say I thank you for sticking with it. Your teachers say, and she's in the room, Miss Jessica Anderson. Please wave, Jessica, because I know you are here as well. There she is. She says that Colin came from a kid who was a little shy in the beginning of his school year to a kid who's tracking her down, looking for different books to read. So it's amazing what happens when you teach kids not just to learn to read, but they want to read to learn. So thank you, Colin, for all your hard work, and I want to acknowledge your parents as well, if they want to stand and be acknowledged. Thank you. In the same vein as social justice and advocacy, I'm very proud of some teachers and in the partnership with the University of Rochester. And you all know Dr. Joanne Larson. She was one of the first individuals in the community who suggested and worked with the school board around establishing the East EPO. And they were just awarded this week. Her and along with 10 teachers are going to create social justice projects throughout this year and throughout this summer. And our students are going to engage deeply in issues relevant to government, to anything around social equity. And I think it's incredible that we're giving kids at East and teachers a training to how to use writing as their true voice. And so that their thoughts and ideas are memorialized in paper and not just a passing thought in conversation. So I want to publicly thank Dr. Joanne Larson, Dr. Jane Lammers, and the East staff for submitting the grant, being awarded the grant, and giving our kids an opportunity to engage in social justice actions across this country and to hopefully influence what we do here locally at Rochester. So thank you. Teachers tonight at parent-teacher conference, so notice none of the staff could attend, but I want to thank them for their advocacy, so thank you. And this past Saturday, East held its first, its second symposium, our first on community schools. Present at this event were over 18 community agencies, and people visited as far as New York City down towards Buffalo. And it was an opportunity for agencies to talk about the benefits of community schooling, and it's different than neighborhood schools, but community schools in terms of bringing in resources to address the social-emotional needs. Commissioner Elliott talked about the social-emotional needs and trauma that our students face, domestic and abroad, and so they talked about how to address that. Food, nutrition, agencies like Food Link were trying to explain how they could serve and provide food pantries for schools, not just in Rochester City, but throughout the county, because there's poverty everywhere, as well as social agency groups who went into great detail around advocacy and the importance of advocates at the state level to bring funding and resources to places like Rochester. The symposium was closed out by Mayor Lovely Warren, who spoke passionately about the support of this board and the impact it's had at School 17 and the resources that they provided there. I also want to take this time to introduce someone who's been a strong advocate since he joined the University of Rochester's team. This is Dean Anand Mari. Mari Anand, could you please stand? Anand is our new Dean of Education. He has a long background in history, mostly rooted at Columbia College, but he started his career as a teacher in urban settings and focusing on the most critical issues of equity. And to have a dean who's new to Rochester to come here because of our equity agenda, but to help enhance that is extremely meaningful. I had the pleasure to be on the interviews committee, so I can't give too much because it's in confidence, but he was one of few deans who really spoke about Rochester specifically, because he had a history here with some of the work he had done with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, but he really talked about the importance of partnering with school districts so that all kids receive equitable opportunities to be successful. And so I welcome him to Rochester, I welcome his passion to Rochester, and I'm certain that as we move forward as a community, you'll get a chance to interface with the school board more intimately. So welcome, Dean Mari. And tonight, I want to just take one moment to, I forgot I had this clicker, to again thank the board. I know you have a difficult decision tonight in front of you as one of our resolutions to consider an extension to the EPO. And when I say it's difficult, I think it's difficult only because there are so many questions about how do we support students who have been undertaught and underserved. And there's been very many models that have been presented to this board over the years. And it's hard to choose which ones are beneficial and which ones are not. I will tell you that today's meeting from 1 to 3, I had a chance to meet with Dan Lowengaard and several of his principals and his leadership team. And what was clear in that conversation as we shared ideas of how to address and support the needs of all students, what was clear to me is that we have done some things at East, and this district has done some things that will influence East in the work that we do, but the things that we have done are things that can be done in other schools. And quite frankly, they are, we provide examples today, and principals are saying they want to do those things in other schools. And so the resolution tonight calls for a few things. The most important one, I think, is to establish a technical assistance center that will allow us to formally share those ideas so that every school principal and teacher will have access, at least the opportunity, to modify, replicate, revise some of the things that we've done, to not make the mistakes that we made, and to enhance upon the things that we did well. Another part of the resolution is to create a transition. This plan was never designed to be something that we live with forever, and I know this board is very interested in having transition plans, and so the resolution calls for a transition plan that will allow the school to return back formally to the district, so there's a seamless transition, and again, what's been done is memorialized in a way that continues well beyond the U of R, well beyond myself, well beyond any individual. And the last but not least part of this plan is for us to force ourselves to collaborate more, not just as a technical assistance center, but to think about how we transform the lives of all students in this community. Natalie Shepard posted today on Facebook. She's always on Facebook if you follow her a little bit. But she posted today that we should seriously think about not celebrating a standard that only has 10% of our kids succeeding. And we often do that. We make a little bit of gains and we say, oh, we made it and we've solved the urban issue. And we don't seek to do that. We don't claim victory. What I've said to Dan, and I've said to Natalie, and I've said to many people who've asked is, what we've done is created a process and a starting point to address the root causes of the problems that impede our kids from being successful. So what you're voting for is not the solution, but you're voting for a continuation of a process that will finally address the real issues that are surfaced from our parents, the real issues that surface from our students, the real issues that you've brought up for years around equity, and the real issues that impede our leaders from being successful and true leaders in this work. And so, as difficult as that decision may be and not knowing what the future holds, I hope that you take seriously my commitment and University of Rochester's commitment to making Rochester a better place and doing it in this partnership and hopefully being able to expand it, and extend it to other schools. So I thank you in advance for your consideration, and I know whatever the vote is, that we'll continue to work as partners and to address the needs of our students. So thank you.
So as we often do in situations like this, where there are people in attendance who are here understandably for a particular resolution, we take that resolution in advance, and as chair of this meeting, that's what I'm going to do. So I would ask that there be a motion to discuss Resolution 832. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Made by Commissioner
Commissioner
Shepard,
LeBron.
seconded by Commissioner LeBron.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye. Strike that. Now, conversation. Any questions or comments regarding that Resolution 832?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner LeBron?
I just want to thank Sean, because I know oftentimes I have a lot of questions for East specifically. I end up having more questions for Dan and previous superintendent. But when you come, I have my share questions. And one of the concerns that I had was that we have a transition plan. You know, when I came on the board, I looked at a contract that had a 5-year contract. And it's been my experience in the district from previous superintendents and other programs that we would start programs and then end programs. And there was never really a transition plan. And I always found that to be very hard on students in this district, that they would build relationships with people that they came to trust and get support from. And oftentimes it was because it was a grant-funded program and there was no transition to take a soft money program into hard lines and how to transition that. And so I spent some time with Sean over at East and shared those concerns, and they were very transparent with me about not just those concerns, but some transparency around some of the data and questions I had around that. And so I want to thank you and Lorna. I know I came in, I was supposed to be there a little bit earlier, and I was in my car waiting and then got there a little bit late, so I apologize again. However, I do want to thank you for taking all of my questions and feedback and incorporating that into this, including the technical support piece, because one of the biggest things I'm always talking about is a model, and then it's not just that it's a one-size-fit-all model for all schools in this district, especially when all of our schools have different cultures and different students. So I just want to thank you guys for incorporating that feedback and looking forward to voting tonight, but also having discussions around a solid transition plan. I would never want to vote against this resolution and leave kids hanging and not knowing what's going to happen next year for their school, what their leadership makeup would look like, and how that was going to impact them, not only this year, but in their future. So thank you for that.
I'm going to stay down this end. Commissioner Shepard, did you want to say something or no? You good? It's not a vote yet. Oh, no, not yet. Commissioner Hallmark?
Yeah, I just wanted to share a conversation that Dr. Nelms and I had this afternoon. One of the things I wanted to talk about was this point in the letter about the EPO shall make available to RCSD for use all its materials. And I know there's been a discussion about district-wide curriculum and that East has been very much involved in designing curriculum. And sometimes that can be seen as sort of a conflict, like, okay, aren't we trying to get a full district curriculum, and yet East is producing things and stating that it's going to make it available. So we had this conversation about, I believe very strongly that good teaching is strengthened when teachers get a chance to write and create curriculum, because it kind of, you put your own passion, your own interests, it refreshes the whole process. And so the practice of developing curriculum is a really important one. I know that that's what you guys engaged in. And so it's kind of funny, you know, making the curriculum that you designed available. What we talked about was the thing that's perhaps more important than the curriculum being available is making the process by which you created the curriculum available to other teachers throughout the district, because it's really taking teachers through the process or providing opportunities for that, which is the most valuable thing to me. Otherwise, you know, the curriculum that you create is no different than the curriculum that, you know, we buy from another country. You know, teachers can just use somebody else's. So that practice of developing curriculum is a really important one. And you want to say anything more about that with the center?
No, absolutely. I think that the Technical Assistance Center, and what that is, will have to be designed by whoever the superintendent is and myself, on how we share that work. But what I imagine would be, if a school is looking to adopt the English curriculum, that they send teachers over to watch teachers teach it, to ask questions, to be part of the planning. East teachers will go to that school to do some course corrections or to support. And it's during the school day. Remember, the board funded the development of the curriculum. The board funds the teacher leaders at East. And so any work that's done during the school day is based on the time that we pay. So when we talk about the technical assistance center, it's just leveraging and leveraging up teacher quality. It could be an administrator who is being prepared to be a principal at one of the other schools, spending 2 months to learn master scheduling, or another month to look at funding. So it can have a mind of its own. But I think you're absolutely right. The process for building curriculum was so important, and has created so much synergy between the teachers that in all my time as a school leader, this is probably the most engaging process where I saw the barriers between student and teachers break down. I was showing some principals today a unit that the teachers created in English 11 on Malcolm X. And in that unit, some of the teachers were obviously unfamiliar with his impact beyond what they may have seen on PBS. But to have a history teacher sit there and say, here is how I experienced Malcolm X through my African American lit course in college, and taught teachers about the content from a historical standpoint, while teachers built in lessons around giving voice in that lesson, was a powerful thing. Like, that's how you get at equity issues. That's how you get at having curriculum that's representative of all people. It's having teachers having those really honest conversations to say, the only thing I know about Malcolm X is this. It wasn't presented to me as always positive, but I know that's not the whole truth. Let's talk more about that. And so that's the power of having that synergetic experience of curriculum writing, that you force people to have very uncomfortable and honest conversations to be able to address those same uncomfortable times when students bring those topics. So yeah, the process is absolutely incredible, and I give all the credit to our teacher leaders and our teachers and our chief academic officer. But yes, Liz, you're absolutely right. The process is meaningful, and we would be in a position to be able to share that experience with others moving forward.
Right, and just to clarify additionally that it's not an either-or process.
No, no.
So we could have a district-wide curriculum, but even if you have something in front of you as a teacher, you want to find your own entry point into it, and you may need to develop your own lesson plans. So this process, you could even take something that's already there and learn how to investigate it and discuss it and share practice and observe other teachers. So that's what refreshes the teaching practice. And so it's the process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Vice President Elliott?
I'm totally against it. Let me just put that on the record. First of all, I think what I'd like to do, if we can table it, and here's why, and it seems like we have the votes for it. There's the votes. But I take exception because, first of all, we haven't had time to really do a thorough evaluation on this to determine whether or not that this program is sustainable. We haven't done that. I just got some information Tuesday, and so I think it's unfair for this board to vote for this when we have not had an opportunity to thoroughly evaluate the validity of this program, the sustainability of this program. We got a superintendent that is the superintendent of one school. I have another superintendent who is the superintendent of 30 or 40 schools. It is not sustainable, and I would suggest that this board table this to take a look at this more thoroughly in terms of how we're going to fund it. We can't. Steve came in here and told us that it was very expensive, right? So if we do that for East High School, are we going to put the same amount of money into all these schools? We can't do it. We can't afford it. And so I don't think it's sustainable. I think that it seems to be pushed down my throat because I haven't had a chance to. We haven't, as a board, really looked at the value of this program, what's going to happen in the future. Now, if the U of R wants to put the money behind it, they've got a ton of money, then I would be all for it. But to expect the district, it is unfair for us to expect the district to pay for one school when we've got these 30 or 40 schools that also need to have the same kind of funding. So I have a problem with this. I appreciate the work that Sean has done in terms of the student achievement, but the question becomes, is it sustainable long-term? And it's not. There are already schools who are talking about, well, why does East High School get this money? We understand initially. Now, let me just say this. I was out on health issues last year when this came into to being, so I didn't have a chance to read it thoroughly. If I would have read it thoroughly, I wouldn't have supported it. Only because it cannot be sustained financially. If U of R comes in with funding for it and not depend on district funding, and we know we went and asked you for it, then I'm okay with it. But it costs too much. We cannot afford one superintendent, two principals for one school. So I'm going to ask my colleagues if we can table this so that we can really look at, and I don't know the procedures, and it looks like you all have the 4 votes, but I'm telling you, my colleagues, this is not the right thing to do, particularly when I haven't had an opportunity to ask questions about it, to really do a thorough evaluation of how effective this program is, and is it effective enough based on the cost that we've invested into it. We haven't answered, at least to me, nobody's said answered those questions for me, and I don't remember ever having a venue where we can really have a conversation with the U of R and with East High School about it.
Vice President Elliott, I assume that that is a motion, and a motion to table goes directly to a vote. Yeah, I know that. That's a motion. Is there a second to that motion? There's a second from Reverend Davis, so we'll go right to a vote. All those in favor of Vice President Elliott's motion to table, say aye. There's one aye.
Aye.
I have a question about the motion.
It goes directly to a vote.
Okay.
Any other yays? That motion fails. Now, Commissioner Hallmark, I can back up to you. Do you want to add anything further?
So, yeah, I did have a question, well, 2 questions. One is that I'm sympathetic to that. I would like to maybe have some more time to discuss it, but that would only be in the balance of what are any deadlines, is there a deadline around doing it tonight, or do we have some more time? If we have some more time, I would consider spending some more time to answer questions around the budget. If we don't, then I would want to go ahead and vote tonight.
Hold on.
But so the other question, the other point, yeah, the other point is about the budget. And again, Dr. Nelms and I did have a little discussion about the money. I said, what's the comparison to other schools? And we were talking about, you were saying that the budget has been lowered by 10%, and that there's some discussion about how the budget is maybe not that far different from others, depending on whether you look at actual or projected budgets. And so that's a good question to ask, and I would be willing to explore that unless there's some deadline about it that needs to be dealt. Because overall, I'm for what's happening at East, but I think it's a good question to be entertaining if there's time to.
Now, I want to make sure we get to people who haven't had a chance to speak. My intention was to continue to go down this way, but if it's related to Vice President Elliott's remarks, I'm willing to go back this way. And I'll get to you, too.
Yeah, I just want to add something else to my statement.
No. Hold on. Okay, go ahead. Real briefly, though.
So the other point is that it's we're talking about extended it 5 years. I don't want to support this for 5 years. I don't have a problem with doing 1 or 2 years, but 5 years at that cost, we can't afford it. So
all right.
Thank you.
That's all right. Commissioner Shepard? Hold on one second, Commissioner Shepard, I apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, I had a list of things that I was going to read today about do's and don'ts of a public meeting like this. I quite honestly believe that people understand what those rules are because they got them when they were young, part of your home bringing up. That's what you learn. I'm not going to do it today, right now, because I think you all know that when public officials in the community are engaged in a conversation about the future of this district, it's important that everybody hear what everybody has to say. The rules are that this is a Board of Education meeting, and when people talk out there and yell out things, it disrupts what the people have charged us to do. There are plenty of opportunities for you to engage with us. There's a list of speakers. We tell people can speak at 12. So I would ask you, and in fact, I would plead with you, be respectful of the process. Show yourselves in the kind of behavior that you would have your children act. And I think we'll be okay. All right? Let's go back down to the end here. Yes?
Yeah. So I'm going to be a definite yes on this, but I didn't want to leave the conversation without just responding to Vice President Elliott in regards to the fact that I just get really frustrated when we have like a major decision like this and we're waiting until this day. Now, I've been on the board for over a year. We've talked about this in countless ESA meetings. We get updates on data, and if questions weren't asked, like I don't understand why we're here at the dais ready to vote on it, and now you have concerns, and then I feel conflicted because I don't want to move forward if my colleagues have legitimate concerns, but we right here at the end, and we've had over a year to discuss this, and things have been brought up, things have went back to be reconfigured. We've heard from the community and parents and students that are at East who vouch for the fact that it's working for their children. I understand that there's a financial concern, but I have to say, when it comes to us spending money on kids and the things that are working, I don't understand why we would push back on what's working. And so for me, it's going to be a definite yes, and I hope that in the future when we have very serious conversations about big things like this, because this is major, that we won't wait until the last minute. But I have to support the students and the families and the staff. I mean, they've given countless data. They understand what it is that they're doing over at East. I feel more so that it's really, and I'm just going to say the main district, even though East is a part of the district, that we should have been more proactive on making sure that the best practices that East is doing, that we're replicating them throughout the rest of the district so we can know how much we should be spending in each school. And if it's going to take the money that we are spending at East, we need to figure out how we got to advocate so that that money is going into the other schools as well. And so I just wanted to say that, but I wanted to also let you know, Vice President Elliott and Commissioner Davis, that I respect the fact that you want more time, but it's going to be a yes for me tonight.
I'm going to keep on moving back down this way in response to what Vice President Elliott said. Commissioner LeBron?
So to second that, months ago, I've also been on the board for about 14 months and came in with some major concerns about this model being affordable and sustainable, and I've expressed this numerous times on this board. But I did request a study on East, and that data was provided to all of us via email a while ago. We also held a meeting, and then you also, Sean, offered for us to come and meet with you one-on-one, and I took that opportunity to take the study, learn a little bit more. I, too, share the same concerns with you, Vice President Elliott, about the cost of this, and I will say I was not on the board when this was decided on, but this board did pass that, and at this point, on the day we have the vote, we cannot not support this at this point because there was never a transition plan. And that is a problem for me. We have a history of starting things in this district and ending them suddenly, and then what happens? What happens to staff? What happens to kids? Everybody's shuffled around. So I would like to, I'm going to be voting yes. I want to support the students and families at East High School. I do want us to talk about a transition plan that is solid, that makes sense, that is not rushed. We should not rush this into a year to kick kids out and then transition back. If we are to sustain any of the gains that East has seen, we absolutely have to have a solid transition plan to bring families back.
Excuse me. Carl, yes.
Mr. President, can I make a point of clarification, please, with respect to the resolution that's pending?
Yes, very quickly, yes.
Yes, it appears as if the board believes they're making a final decision this evening. They
Yes.
are not.
We're not.
This only authorizes the negotiation of an agreement which is ultimately subject to the approval of the board. So this is far from the last discussion here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Anybody else want to respond to, and I'm still going to make my way down here, to what Vice President Elliott said? Briefly, though, Commissioner Hallmark?
I have many more things to say, but I'll save it around conditions of work that are being done at,
So, yeah, let me-
hang on, at East, and also around issues that we can be discussing across the whole district around placement and some of the stuff in the letter here, but let's have more discussion later when we have more time.
So that's the issue that I didn't get a chance to. There was a packet that we were given that I didn't get a chance to read, and we're doing all of these other things, DE's report, superintendent search, all of these things until I didn't even open that packet that I was given Tuesday. Tuesday was the first time I believe it was, that it may have been the week before, but, we're focusing on the Distinguished Educators Report. I just believe that we have to have a formal meeting about how East High School has worked, what are some of the areas that needs to be improved, how can we ensure that it's sustained financially. The state is not going to give every school, a superintendent is not going to give every school 2 principals. It's not going to do that. And at the cost that we've paid, in some instances, it's almost an offense to some of the other teachers who are working in other schools that they're not getting the same pay and they're working with the same kids. So if this is just, as our legal counsel, general counsel has said, just an opportunity to renegotiate and look at it, then I don't have a problem with that. But I would like to see a white paper in terms of how it has done. I haven't seen that. And in terms to my colleagues who I highly respect, in my view, what has to happen is that there needs to be a document that can be referred to. There needs to be an opportunity to ask questions. I apologize for asking these kinds of questions at the dais, but I'm under the impression this is being voted on tonight, and which seems to me that it's too premature for us to be voted on. And then it is a 5-year extension. I don't want to vote in favor of a 5-year extension.
Vice President Elliott?
Thank you.
Yep. Let me just say, and again, I'm responding to what Vice President Elliott said, because I too will have some comments at the end of this. I want to correct if Council's remarks. Let's be clear about this. We are voting, if you look at the last resolve that the board approve submission of an EPO contract to the New York State Department of Education. So I want, now Carl, I'm not going to debate it with you, right? That's what we are doing. Now Carl has to negotiate the terms of that, but we are saying, I don't want anybody to be under false impression. We are saying we want this contract to be negotiated and submitted to the state of New York. Ultimately, the board will get to look at those terms, but right now, because I don't want anybody to say, wait a second, I didn't know I was doing that. That's what we're doing. Now, there's going to be some conversation when, like for example, when we do union contracts, we have to talk with the superintendent and get the terms of those agreements, but I don't want anybody to think, oh, no, we're not doing this. Oh, we'll be able to talk about this later on. I want you to understand, we are saying, and people have to vote on this, but you have to vote informed. We are saying we want the state of New York to understand that we want to extend this contract. People need to be clear about that. Because I don't want folks to say, oh, okay, well, that's okay, I'll vote yes, or I can. No, this thing says, if you read it, and I believe we got it last week. No, we didn't get it last week?
Yeah,
I thought
we
it was, yeah, yes, we did. It was in the packet.
Yeah, we did.
It was in an envelope sitting in our dais on this table last week. What's that?
And emailed to us, too. And emailed, too.
In any event, I thought we got it last week, but
got
it seems
several.
like Commissioner Hallmark did too. But
Yeah.
I want to reflect back on something Commissioner Shepard said and Commissioner LeBron said. They provided the detail. Last year, I think it was last year, Sean invited everybody to come out, take a look at the place, ask questions. He provided, since this thing has begun, regular monthly reports. I realize there's a lot coming at us. With all due respect, though, that's the job. That's the job. And we have to be prepared to do the job. And I know it's difficult. I know what Vice President Elliott is talking about. Sometimes I think I wish I had 2 different lives. But this is the job. And these students who've got the services of the University of Rochester and our staff are entitled, as they are doing their job, they're entitled for us to do our job, as difficult as it is. And by the way, I think their job is 10 times more difficult than ours. And they have to multitask. So I just want to say, and I can't say it as good as Commissioner LeBron and Commissioner Shepard have, but I believe that the University of Rochester, Sean Nelms, has done his due diligence, presenting to us regularly the details that we've talked about, the finances. This should be a shock to no one that this is an expense. And in fact, Joel Seligman said, I'm going to tell you, it's going to cost you more money, right? But nobody is saying that this is going to go on forever. And I'll get to that portion of my comments later on. Does anybody else down here want to respond to what Vice President Elliott said? Okay, so we'll continue to move down.
Yeah.
Really. This is it, please? Commissioner, Vice President Elliott?
I would like to make an amendment to the motion that we talk about a 2-year extension and not a 5-year extension, if we're going to, but not 5 years. Can you want to, if I'm not saying, please?
You want to offer...
If I'm making a wrong
You want to
statement.
offer a friendly amendment? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, that we amend the resolution to 2 years and not to 5. Can I do that?
It would be a contract up to 2 years as opposed to a contract up to
5 years.
Yes.
No commitment in this motion
That's right.
that the contract ultimately be 5 years in length. It will be whatever the negotiators determine and what the board ultimately approves before it goes to the state.
Just a little point of clarification. In the contract that you are to negotiate will have up to 5 years. So even when that contract is negotiated, assuming it's successful, and I see a lot of attorneys shaking their head, when that contract is negotiated, that's not a negotiable term, Mr. Kristoff. It is going to be a contract language that says up to 5 years, right? So it could happen that someone, for some reason, thinks the University of Rochester or the Rochester School District that we want to get out early. That could happen in the contract that you will negotiate. So it's not that we're saying it's going to go 5 years. It could go up to 5 years.
Hold on.
I'll go Commissioner LeBron and then Commissioner
Yeah,
Hallmark.
give me 1 second, Liz, I'm sorry. It stays here, though, to renew the agreement for another 5-year period. It doesn't say up to in the resolution, so I want to be careful with that because we have passed a resolution just a few months ago, and there was not very clear language in there, and that led to some further confusion for how we were going to move forward. And so it doesn't say up to, it just says for another 5-year period.
Bethany, you want to comment on that? Or Carol?
Either one of us, I think we're both in agreement.
Okay, good.
The first resolve does say up to 5 years,
So,
which is the actual action that is being adopted by the board if you vote in favor of this.
Okay.
Where, I'm sorry, Carl.
First, where?
It's in the third line of the first resolved paragraph.
so page 4.
Page 4,
Yeah, page 4 in the copy that I got.
5th paragraph.
About
Fifth
halfway
paragraph,
down the
fifth
page.
paragraph?
Or nearly halfway down the page.
Remember, the first half of the whereases reflect the current contract. The resolved is the amendments to that contract.
That's
Here it
what we're
is.
actually going to be
Here it is.
doing. So it says resolved. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph, resolved, comma, that the board authorizes the district's general counsel to enter into negotiations for the renewal of the EPO contract with the University of Rochester to serve as the EPO organization for East High School for an additional term of up to 5 years.
Okay, thank
commencing
you.
on July 1st, 2020. Contingent upon budget appropriations and contingent upon the form and terms of the contracting having been approved by the State Education Department and the board, and be it further.
Okay, thank you for that
All right,
clarification.
Liz.
So-
Commissioner Hallmark, I'm sorry.
So I think we really could tie this together. There was a whole discussion about how important the transition is, and if there's an up to decision being made, maybe it could be dependent and sort of worked into the number of years depends on the sort of transition plans that we put together, and that would put the impetus on the district to really be serious about using this as an opportunity to learn from what East is doing and really lay out the blueprint for using. It's like a little innovation school, right? And we have this model for us to use, and we should really be tying the number of years to our transition plan.
Vice President Elliott, before you comment, and again, I want to move down this way, no disrespect was intended. I wanted to make sure that other people had an opportunity to speak, but go ahead.
It really did feel like that.
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
President.
and it wasn't intended.
Accepted.
I'm sorry.
Because, let me just say, because I do this from my heart.
I do
And for
too.
that to be said, I did take exception to it. But thank you for the apology. I'm not saying that the program is not a good program. I'm saying, how can we sustain it? And I will also remind my colleagues is that the mayor believes she has a line item vote. And so we have to take all of that into consideration. And so I'm not sure if she does or not, but that's what she believes. And if she believes that we have to be financially conservative, we have to take all of these pieces in mind if some of the money that we have set aside for some programs may be gone. We have to look at the fact that we've got an expensive program at East High School. I commend the work that's being done over there, but I will always maintain, is it sustainable? And given that we also have a special education consent decree, am I using the right terminology there? We also have that we have to take in consideration as well, that if we don't do that right, they can come in and they can rearrange our budget. So that's why I'm saying, is this sustainable? There are too many other factors that contribute to the finances in this district for us to continue at the level, and particularly to extend it 5 years. Now, if we want to extend it 2 in order that we can transition, or if the U of R is willing to pay for it, I have no problem with it. But I'm looking at what the mayor may do. I'm looking at what the special education consent decree may also, how that may impact our budget. I'm looking at all of that. And so while this is a good program, and I applaud the parents being involved, but we have a fiduciary responsibility, not only to East High School, but the other high schools, special education, as well as what the mayor may do with our budget.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Davis. Sorry, I stole your mic.
That's okay. For myself, the problem is I'm just so new. I've been here for 4 months, and Commissioner Elliott did outline the things that have me swirling, the district educator report, the superintendent search, and literally, I got that packet Tuesday evening, 1.5 days ago, and and Superintendent Nelms invited me. In fact, you're one of the first schools. You are the first school that I attended, and I'm pleased with it. I'm pleased that they're growing a staff that can expand practices to other schools. I'm pleased with the culinary and the optics and all that they have for students. So my only problem is I wasn't here. I wasn't here a year ago. I haven't walked through this with the board. I've been here for 4 months. And for myself, I'm a person who likes to be able to evaluate a program. So what would be useful to me would be a white paper, showing how we would transition to this, showing how we would sustain that, because I'm an analytical person. And so my problem really is just being too new and not having the information. And what I did have, I got Tuesday evening. And so I don't have sufficient information to make an analysis. So I did write the board before this meeting and had asked if we could table it and make the decision on May 23rd when we come back together again. So that's how I came to be where I am. Thank you.
Commissioner Powell?
Yeah, I'd like to spend a minute reflecting on the history of the EPO. You'll recall that New York State, part of the race to the top, I think, created the EPO model as one of 5 responses to failing schools. And a few of those failing schools embarked on the EPO path. Most of them chose to close or to restructure, or to phase out, or turn around. Buffalo had 2 examples of EPOs that were tried with the illustrious Johns Hopkins, but I don't think that we can look to those as examples of success. So East High, we had navigated the contract with the University of Rochester, and it was in place only 1 year when the state went and changed the laws again around failing schools, and they called it receivership, right? Which means there are no other examples of the EPO process like what we are embarked in right now. There are very few pure examples of the EPO to turn to. But so far, what we have is an EPO that's showing exactly the trajectory that we would expect of a successful turnaround model. I expect that East High will be a school in good standing in less than 5 years. I expect that we will be utilizing the language of up to 5 years to exit this contract in less than 5 years because of its success. And finally, I believe that scholars will be writing doctoral theses on what's been done differently in the East High EPO that make it successful where others have failed. Look at Johns Hopkins crashed and burned. Part of it was because they had a dysfunctional school board that refused to support it. Part of it was that the job was bigger than Johns Hopkins could really tackle. We have a shining beacon on a hill here, and I don't think we should be quarreling over the finer points of how we got here or how much money it cost. And I use the word quibble advisedly to say that we have had outstanding partners in this who recognize that the scarcest resource we have is money, and that we have to be careful with it. And as good stewards and good partners, they've given back every chance that they could get. So again, I say, I think that there are going to be doctoral theses written about what made this work. And I want to be part of that path. And I do want it to be less than 5 years, and I think it will be less than 5 years. I'm not a prophet, but that's my expectation now, and I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, so I just want to comment on a couple of things. So I too am very analytical, and I requested a study on East, and that study was emailed to every single commissioner on this school board on January 23rd of 2019. So there has been ample time from January 23rd to today's meeting to read that study, ask questions, reach out to East, ask some additional analytical questions around some of the data that was shared. So I want to express that. I also want to express that I would never, if I was coming in as a brand new commissioner and this was a brand new EPO and it was at this cost and this rate, personally, I would not support it. However, I've come into this EPO, and the reality is that our kids have been there for 4 years now under this EPO. And again, we cannot leave kids hanging, and we cannot continue the repetition of starting programs and cutting them off right away without a transition plan. I too will support not extending it up to 5 years, but I would also need to see a realistic, I don't want to rush the transition plan. I want it to be realistic, not just for staff, but for the students, so that they are able to maintain the same relationships. Because part of why I think East has seen some of the success, even if it doesn't translate to the way I would want it to in terms of the academics, and there's strives there too, is the relationship piece of it. And we're always talking about how critical it is for our staff to have good relationships with the students. And so I would not, again, want to leave kids hanging by not moving forward with this. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that we received a really data-rich report on January 23rd. Around East High School, and if the date helps, that you can go back to your email and try to find it and take some time while Carl is negotiating, and take that time during the negotiations to ask additional questions and any other critical questions that come up. Thank you.
So, yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, I think it is, it lacks prudence that we would not have the EPO in a forum, in a committee, in a meeting, to really talk about and to have a white paper and to really thoroughly talk about the success, to evaluate the program. There has not been that kind of a presentation. We're talking about, it is about, the EPO is about to end, and they're asking for a 5-year extension. I think it is important that a formal presentation, a white paper, be it the U of R or be it the U of R, to come in and present to us formally what has been the successes, what's the evaluation of the school. That has not been done on a collective level. I take offense when you all tell me, well, you can go and look at it. No, they're supposed to come here to present to us so that we're able to ask questions. And I think that because we did not have that kind of opportunity where it's presented in a public forum, I'm sure the public would like to know, how well did he do? Now, I'm not saying the program didn't do well. That's not what I'm saying. But what I need to understand, and if I'm going to support it, I need to be able to understand for myself what the evaluation of it, so that I can advocate or talk about it in the community. At this point, I'm not able to do that.
Okay, Sean, would you mind if I went to Commissioner Powell so that if you have a response to anything anybody said, you can include it? Commissioner Powell?
Thank you. One additional thought. East is still in receivership status. It is not a school in good standing. On that basis alone, I don't believe that we can simply dissolve an EPO relationship and absorb East back into our home. I don't think that state law allows that. The EPO, although it preceded receivership schools, when a school is in receivership, that receivership entity, in this case, the U of R and Sean as our superintendent, receivership superintendent, they have to stay in place until it becomes a school in good standing, if I understand the receivership law correctly. So the only say that we as a board have in this matter are what the terms of that relationship are.
Superintendent, go first.
Well, I want to make sure that he is able to respond to everything folks have said. Is there something additional you want to add?
Oh, well, I wanted to share that, again, like Commissioner Elliott mentioned, I don't recall there ever being a public forum talking about the evaluation of the EAST program. And what I'm really more so looking for, trying to understand, is do we have a transition plan? This is to approve planning to plan the transition. Is it, or is there actually, so you can tell me right now what schools we're going to start with to expand the practices that are used at East? We have that kind of plan in place of how we're going to transition?
Well, I'll let Dr. Nelms speak to that, but this isn't a resolution to talk about how they will give advice and guidance to other schools. This just says that will be part of their work.
No, I'm not talking, yeah, so that's
Right.
my main point. It's part of their work. What I have learned in 4 months, and I'm not going to say it's East, what I have learned, just looking from the DE's report, that plans are said that they're going to be made and implemented, but we have a DE report of 84 recommendations and evaluations of programs that were never actually implemented or done. So for myself, I would feel more comfortable seeing some type of transition plan, if that's the kind of white paper that Commissioner Elliott was talking about, to see that we have something that we can actually implement. We have something on paper of the action steps, only because of what I've seen just in these 4 short months. And so again, I don't believe that exists, and I don't believe that we did have that kind of evaluation. But like I said, I'm pleased with what I see, but to make the step of approving for another 5 years, I would like to see that white paper.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add this, I'm sorry, Commissioner, if you don't mind. So I just want to remind, I just think it's, I know Commissioner Powell started with some context, and I appreciated that for those who weren't familiar with how the EPO came about. I want to give context around the sharing of information. Commissioner LeBron, you're right. We have shared that report, our report to the board in January. We've invited the board to all of our public symposiums and forums where parents and community members ask many questions about the EPO. I know this past weekend there was a conflict with the search for the superintendency, but there was a community schools forum this past weekend. We've also shared the data that's been collected from our students and our parents and our staff over the last 3 years. And so I just want to be clear that we have given white papers, we've given data in the most dense ways. We've tried to do it in the lightest of ways, and we also gave the 3-year report that captured what was happening and what we're going to do moving forward. So I would say, just to remind the community and the board, I know some people came in 4 months and some have been here for a little longer, but we've definitely, I think we've done, at some point, been accused of giving too much data to the board to make a decision. As far as a transition, this resolution reflects all of the conversations I've had with the board members who've visited personally, who we've met in small groups. They've accepted that invitation. The original resolution did not have a transition plan in there until it was recommended. And we said, all right, what would that look like? So we put that language in. The original plan did not necessarily account for Technical Assistance Center, but that was done with the support of some folks from the leadership team as well as the board, who said we can't make it person dependent around sharing the information, and it has to be memorialized in the resolution so that whoever comes in next as superintendent, if I leave, whoever comes in next as the EPO person, understand that it's an importance, which I don't have any plans to do, but they understand the importance of that synergy in the process of redesigning and building on the system. So like I said, I started by saying that the vote is always difficult because there's a lot of unknowns. But what I can say to you is that if the past reflects the future, we have been constantly uncovering the layers that led to many of our students being undertaught, our staff members from being underdeveloped, and our administrators from being a lack of support. And we've done that collectively. And it's not to say that everything that happened in the past is wrong, everything we're going to do in the future is right, but at least we now understand what those issues are. And I hope that the board votes in favor of this resolution so that we can really start to talk about not just transition of the school, but transition of the learning. That's more important. I'm less concerned about where the school is in year 6. I'm more concerned with where is the learning going to be 6 years from now. And if we can focus there and resolution is passed, I promise and guarantee we'll continue to do the work with due diligence. We will continue to be fiscally prudent as we have. We will continue to seek outside funding to offset costs, and we've done that, and we continue to do that. And I think tabling this or not approving it symbolically it may not do what we expected that we're asking of. I think moving this resolution forward is an indication to our parents and our staff and future parents and future students that we're committed to really unpacking what's happening here. And more importantly, we're committed to making sure that other schools have it across the city. And that's where we're headed.
Commissioner LeBron?
Sorry, and then a couple of points. So one point I do want to point out is because I know that people are watching these meetings, and the mayor does not have veto voting power over our school board budget. City council does, but our money is also very convoluted everywhere within the budget. So I just want to clarify that point. In addition, I think that you guys are saying white paper, and I'm saying the data report, and I believe it's the same thing, the report that I'm talking about that was sent on the 23rd. But I also want to point out that East High comes every single month here to give presentations around different points of data, and that's how we know how rich the curriculum is, and the entire, all the teachers that worked and wrote the curriculums were here giving that presentation. And I often drill down on a lot of that data. I've asked for us to not just work out of percentages, but factual, actual numbers, so that when we're speaking about, 20% of students are tier 4, I need to know what 20% at East High School looks like, because 20% is different from school to school. And that feedback has been accepted, and the next time you've come and given reports, it has that information. So that's one thing I do appreciate. And so I do want to say that I believe that you guys have done a great job in coming out to give data and give presentations. And I know that you're also still new at 4 months, but again, that report was sent out January 23rd, and now it's May, and it's time to vote for this. Now, I was very strongly recommending to Sean the transition plan. And when I started my remarks at the very beginning of this, I thanked him for adding that language in there because I strongly believe that there has to be a transition plan. I would not support another 5 years without a transition plan. I would have voted no if that was not incorporated in there. But I very much so want to support our students and families in all of our high schools, and I have gone and had these debates right here with Van about supporting our other high schools and making sure that they're successful and adequately funded and supported. I don't think this is a model that is affordable for every school that we have, but we do have to figure out in a really strategic and solid way. And when I mean transition out is how does the U of R transition out and we transition East back under the district and sustain the gains that have been made at that school. And we don't have that plan yet, and we need to work on that plan, but that's how I would support this, so thank you.
Commissioner Hallmark?
Okay, so not to beat a dead horse, but I'm also going to agree that you guys have presented lots of data, had forums, shown papers, so I do believe that you have presented all the data, and we've had it in front of us for a long time. And so that's not a lack on your part. But what I will say is this idea about the transition plan, thank you for uplifting that. And I think the other piece is that this is on us. We need to commit to making sure when we evaluate the EPO, the transition plan, that's what we're looking at. Is it there? That's part of the formal evaluation that we should be doing. Okay, and then the other piece is that I think that what's in here is a call to action to us to take some of the best ideas and start implementing it elsewhere across the district. So it's not all about what can you guys do, but what can the district do? How can we take these ideas and put them all over the district? So I see it as a call to action for us. That's it.
Vice President Elliott?
You know, people's learning styles are different. And for me, I would have liked to have seen a white paper from the U of R and all of the data that my colleagues is referencing, that be in context with the fact that we are talking about renewing the EPO. And that's the piece that's missing, because if you are able to context it in relation to that we're going to need to renew the EPO, there may even be some different questions. And so I don't believe, at least I didn't have that opportunity. I'm not going anywhere to listen to information in the sense of, let me qualify that, in the sense of me not thinking that that we're talking about in the context of renewing the EPO. I wouldn't have thought, even when Sean has presented here, it was never in the context of that we were going to renew the EPO. So that wasn't my thinking. For me, it's about having a summary over the 5 years of what's been done, given the context and given some rationale of why we need to continue the EPO. And that's what I didn't get. And so that's the issue for me, in addition to it not being, in my view, financially sustainable, because of it particularly, I mean, I've been saying this since the beginning, that it was too expensive, but at the same time, given, you know, what we have to contend with now in this district around special education, around some of these other things, can we sustain this program financially? That doesn't say that I'm against any of the parents, doesn't say that I'm against any of the students. I think that I'm not questioning the school. I'm just questioning the structure. Can we sustain that structure? And that's the last that I'm going to say, Mr. President. But I did have on the table an amendment for up to 2 years as opposed to 5.
So I assume that's a motion to amend the resolution.
A motion to amend the resolution.
Is there a second to that motion? There being no second, that motion will not make its way to a vote. I wanted to, yes.
I know you've waited longer than all of us to make your remarks, President White, but I wanted to speak to the financial issue and Commissioner Elliott's final note make a good transition. No one in this room would be surprised for me to remind them that I've been an advocate for the campaign for fiscal equity, campaign for educational equity, full funding of schools across our state. This district has never received the funding that was promised. So, of course, there are many ways to react to the question of, well, what to do when there's not enough money, right? And that's why we, the generic we, the universal we, make decisions like cutting funding to expensive schools, even when those cuts cause harm. The reason I bring that to the table now is, regardless of how much we paid for East High EPO, regardless of what the differential is between East High's per pupils funding versus any other high school, we have an opportunity here to document the costs that went into rehabilitating a school and remediating the students in that school and scaling it out to demonstrate to the state that in order to have this level of success in all of our high schools, it's going to cost this much money, right? We're often criticized for being given increases in funding and not using that additional dollars wisely. And that's a fair argument. But when you have an example that is demonstrating itself to be successful, then we need to take it the next step and calculate the cost of the new things that were done and scale it up and demonstrate to the state, now, if you want all of our high schools to be successful, then you need to deliver on the contract for excellence promise. It is still on the books. And I will never waste an opportunity at this dais to talk about how the state has written a law, voted it into law, amended it, and never removed it from the books. It is still the law of the land, and yet they have no timetable on which to deliver the funding that was promised. So all we need to do is demonstrate that we got it right, now it's time for them to do it right. Thank you.
So to Commissioner Powell's argument, I really do appreciate that. But that's the kind of argument and debate I think is necessary to have so that we can do the kind of advocacy work that needs to be done. I'm glad that we've had this kind of dialogue, because even to get to what Commissioner Powell just said, I didn't have an opportunity to hear that before. I've heard her say it over the years, but not in the context of this. So that's why it's important for me to understand what's the value of this EPO, the structure of the EPO, so that if that's the case, we can go to Albany and say, this works. I haven't had that conversation, right? So that's why I think that it was so important to have a white paper so that we can have this dialogue. And I think the greatest thing that I've heard tonight is what Commissioner Powell's just said, right? So that we understand the amount of money it takes to educate. Now, I would not argue that it takes, a superintendent for every school, but I certainly would advocate that getting a successful school and the increases and it may cost money. But we don't know that until we're able to reflect, that we're able to do the deep dive analysis so that we have a legitimate, authentic argument to the funders. We haven't done that. And that's why this conversation, I believe, has been so important for us to do it, so that at least I know that what we need to do. And I hadn't heard that before. You know, maybe it was okay for everybody else. They're on board with it, but it was not okay for me. Okay, so thank you, but I'm still not voting for it. I just want you to know. But I appreciate the argument.
So let me just say, Commissioner LeBron was correct when she said she and I have had many debates, conversations about East, and I'm glad we're both still here. And some of the things that Vice President Elliott just mentioned, we've had those conversations right at this dais, after reports and so forth by Dr. Nelms. So I don't want anybody to misunderstand the history here. There has been extensive, exhaustive conversations, thanks to the U of R and their diligence on trying to make sure we understood what was happening. And a number of my colleagues have pointed out there have been monthly reports that have detailed what has been happening. I also want to just respond very briefly to some of the things that have been said. Mayor Warren's name was mentioned. Now, whether we believe that she or should not be in part of this conversation, the reality is she was at a community schools forum just this weekend and was the keynote speaker at where? At East High School. Let's be clear about this. She loves community schools. She was the keynote speaker at East High School's program on community schools. I don't think that she will be a person saying, I haven't spoken directly about this. We should care, whether she's a funder or not. We should care about what our other elected representatives say. I believe it's fair to say that she loves community schools and that the approach that East has taken, the community East has taken, I believe she's supportive of that. Secondly, there have been conversations about the budget of East High School. Understand this, ladies and gentlemen, we just are about to finish an exhaustive budget process. There was a tab that said East High School, and people had opportunities to ask questions about what their budget was and what it was going to consist of in the context of the larger budget. Not only could that have been a conversation about the financial demands at East, but it could have been any questions about anything. And by the way, let me repeat again, it would not have been the first time people asked questions about East High School. And I anticipate that it won't be the last. Third, people talk about white papers. I don't come from the college instructional professor environment. As Commissioner LeBron or Commissioner Shepard said, call it what you want. Papers, documents have been presented ad nauseum, no offense, Sean, about what has happened at East High School. Now, folks might want to call it a white paper, or you might want to call it a report, but there has been no shortage of information about what has been happening at East High School. I can point out the highlights. When they started, you can go to New York State Department of Education, and I think this is where maybe some of my colleagues are coming from. This program has been, by the numbers, successful. Listen to me, people. When they started, there was a 31% four-year graduation rate. It is 4 years later, and they've doubled that. We don't have too many examples, folks, of that. You can applaud to that. That's right. Amen. People preoccupied with bad news in this district. You get some good news, and you don't want to celebrate it. You don't want to advance it. Come on now. You can say amen to that. That's right. That's good news. That's right. The fourth thing I wanted to say, let's make no mistake about it. You know, we talk about the University of Rochester and all these folks have done, let's make no mistake about it. That success, 31 to 61, 85% reduction in out-of-school suspensions. Forget Sean, forget Steve. That is the work of parents and students. We should be celebrating that success. Come on now. Those are our people that are doing that. Those are our people that are graduating. And you all don't want to put that out, and you don't want more kids to experience that? Come on now. I know you do. I know you do. Don't let me start preaching. Now let me say, it is also the reflection of, and Dr. Nelms has talked about this, the good work that staff, from cafeteria ladies to teachers to social workers, have put behind our children. right? And let me just say, in terms of the history, this was not an easy answer for this community. And we should recognize the work of Joel Seligman, who is no longer president, the current president, Richard Feldman, Steve Eubing, Joanne Larson, Dean Raphael Barassi, and welcome Dean Mari. We appreciate your involvement in this effort. And of course, Dr. Nelms and Norma. Let's give these folks a round of applause. We don't applaud our people that are doing good work enough. Let's give them another round of applause. People are doing good work. Now, I know the question has been asked, can we afford to do this? Let me be clear about this. Can we afford not to do this? Because what happens when these kids don't graduate? They go to prison and jails. Can we afford more children going into prison? What's the cost of a child who's got to go 5 years, 6 years, 7 years before he graduates? What's the cost in personnel? What's the cost in life lost and hopes deferred, as somebody said? That's expensive. There is no reason why we should not be celebrating this success and moving it forward. No reason. And I would encourage my colleagues in this community to finally say there is hope in this district and give an example of how we can move on and how we can be successful. It is time for us to celebrate our success. You there? You there? We there. All right, well, I think people want to vote. Uh-oh.
Yeah, you talked about moving on. Sound like the accordance vote. The question.
All right. She called the question.
Yes.
All those in favor of resolutions 832 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Oh, no. Hell to the no.
I got, she's a no.
Hell to the no.
Resolution 832 passed. Congratulations, the City of Rochester. Dr. Nelms, is there anything further?
Amen. Thank you, sincerely, thank you. Thank you, University of Rochester, more importantly, the board. And I know, and thank you for all your votes. And we're going to inform what we do next, and we'll continue to be more open and transparent about our work and try to serve as many kids in the district as possible. Thanks.
All right. Next item on the agenda is speakers addressing, not addressing a item on the agenda. Cynthia Coy, I may not be pronouncing that correctly, I apologize. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, but remember, we took this out of order so that people who were here for this could see 832. Thank you, Commissioner Powell.
Okay, my name is Cynthia Clay.
Clay, I'm sorry, it's spelled wrong here, I apologize.
Okay. I'm still upset that the teacher who was racially biased against my son still has a job with the district. She intentionally doesn't like people that are brown or black skin. If you're not lighter than a brown paper bag, she puts you out of her class. She put my son out of her class for months. She would go ahead of time and drop off papers to other teachers. How do you know the day before that he's gonna be bad? I don't know. Maybe that racism in her sparked something. I regret to say that she's still working for the district. The district and the teachers union is pampering her. She's got a paid vacation. She shoved my son and no one called the police or CPS or did anything. Now I've had one meeting I wasn't even invited to. The meeting was supposed to be at 10 o'clock when I could put my kids on the bus at 9, which I told Ms. Green, my kids don't get the bus till 9. The meeting happened at 8. How in the world can I get my kids on the bus safely? And, oh my goodness. Okay, my son said, please, Mom, speak nice. Okay. I'm so tired of being pushed around. I had a second meeting. Nothing happened to my satisfaction because I'm still not told what happened to her, what disciplinary actions happened to her. I still can't see the file, the report. The incident report for her shoving my son was never filed, nothing in writing. I can't get anything from the board, from the district, You're supposed to be protecting my child. My child comes here and he's getting bullied by this teacher. So basically, you've enabled this racist woman to just go about her merry business, and now next year, she'll traumatize someone else. I did say traumatize because my child is in danger, and he was traumatized by her. Now, you are not doing anything about this? She still got a job with the district because of her tenure? How dare you? How dare you? My child deserves better than that. And I'm not getting any satisfaction. She had a meeting with Miss Green, and they all were so happy that she showed up. She showed up. She was here to speak with you. Oh, but I told you I can't get here till 10. She showed up at a meeting at 8, and I can't get here till 10. Now, how am I supposed to get closure? You tell me that. I don't have it. My son doesn't have it. And the next year when she traumatizes the next brown or black child that's not light as a brown paper bag, what are you going to do? Is she going to bring a weapon into school and hurt them more than she hurt my child? Now, how dare you? How dare you think that you're going to sweep it under the rug? Because every year I found out she's been doing this every year for years and years and years. And there are others that you basically wipe your hands off and just, go about your business because she has tenure and she cannot be gotten rid of. How dare you?
Myrna Gonzalez, Ms. Gonzalez. I thought I saw her here earlier. Myrna Gonzalez. How about Mercedes Phelan?
Hi, my name is Everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay. My name is Mercedes Phelan. I'm the lead organizer for Citizen Action of New York. And I really want to start off by thanking all the board members, well, all except for one, for voting yes on the budget that fully restored restorative practices into the budget. So thank you very much for that. But the other thing I really want to talk about was I'm really disappointed in the fact that that work was not really highlighted due to a disruption that happened during the meeting. I feel like that was a real opportunity for the board to stand in solidarity with one of their other board members when they were being verbally attacked. And I had this written out. Yeah, oh. Hang on, trying to find my place. All right, yeah. So this same person has been somebody who's been, verbally attacking the board for years, members for years, and I really feel like this would have been an opportunity for you guys to stand with Beatrice LeBron and really show like an authentic relationship and solidarity. So my hope is that in the future that you guys find a way to work together and really just, sorry, I should not drink Coke. But yeah, no, just work together. And if somebody, especially somebody who is an actual parent of the district, somebody who is shows authentic relationships and she's here for our kids. And so we really need to be supportive of that, because if we don't, then the state is going to take over. So that's it.
Stephanie Vargas.
That's me. Sorry, I hate public speaking, but our kids are worth it, so that's why I'm up here today. My name is Stephanie. I'm a community organizer for Citizen Action of New York. I'm also a community member who was born and raised right here in the Flambos, if anybody knows where that is. That's where all the Puerto Ricans are. I went to our city schools, as did many of my relatives. I have seen firsthand how our underfunded schools have essentially fed our students to the streets, and the streets have accepted them with open arms, my baby sister being one of them. A young girl with so much potential who went to a school with teachers who were overwhelmed and not trained in spotting mental health issues. A school that felt consistent suspension was the answer instead of prevention and intervention. A girl who loved poetry to sing and wanted to be a writer was kicked out of school where the streets taught her that heroin was the answer to all her problems. I now drive up and down Lyle Ave looking for a 19-year-old girl who should be in college finishing up her exams. My sister was kicked out of school at the age of 14 before restorative practices were implemented. I wish it had been done sooner because it could have saved my sister. And the data shows that since its implementation, it works. So I want to thank all the members who voted in favor of passing a budget that included restorative practices because it has worked for our kids. I just wish it could have been sooner. So to every board member who voted yes, I thank you. And the ones who voted no, you are on notice. We see you. I also want to stand here in solidarity with Beatrice because she is an example to our children. That's how I want my kids to grow up. I want them to stand up to bullies who act like they're advocates in the community but have accomplished nothing and antagonize women of color. I stand with you. You got the community behind you, and we need more people like you on the board, people who are parents with students in this district, not people who don't live in this city, not people who don't have kids in our schools. We need people like you and Shepherd, and I'm gonna work every day to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we move to the consideration of resolutions. The first set of resolutions is 829 to 830. Can I get a motion to discuss those human capital initiatives?
So moved.
Then moved by Commissioner Hallmark, seconded by Commissioner Powell. Any questions or comments regarding resolutions 829 through 830?
I do.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a question about 831. There's actually two things. Huh? Oh, we're not on
No,
831.
yeah, just 829 to 830?
Okay.
That's all right. No questions or comments? All those in favor of resolutions 829 to 830, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Just for 829.
Got that?
Yes, 829, yeah.
All right. Now I need a motion. I assume that would be you, Commissioner LeBron, to
Yes.
discuss resolutions 831. Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Powell. Any questions or comments regarding resolution 831?
So I do, in reference to scope of work, current salary, and where this funding is specifically coming from. So because it's about a particular individual, can we talk about that here? Do we have to talk about it in executive?
It's about a particular individual. We would, and it's a detailed question.
It
We need to
is.
answer. We'll have to, we can put that on to executive session. We have some stuff to discuss in executive session anyway. So
Okay.
we can do that. So let's put off a vote on 831. We've already voted on 832. So let's move on to, there's no unfinished business, right, Madam Clerk? There's no new business, right? Vice President Elliott?
I just want to take this point of personal privilege. I took it the last time to just encourage people. This is the 2019 United Way campaign. And so I would want to encourage the staff and my colleagues to contribute to the United Way. I know that the City School District does a great job in contributing, but I just want to remind folk, if it wasn't for the United Way, I probably would not be where I am today because of the programs over at Lewis Street Center when I was growing up. And so in its youth department, and Ricky can attest to that as well, that we had some great times, and our groups still get together some 30, 40 years later. So I just want to encourage you. It is an investment. It is not an expense. You will see the lives of people within your community change. We always have to give back, to whom much is given, much is required. And so I just think it's important. I just want to put a plug in for the United Way, that they really are doing good work. And I understand, I didn't get to the meeting, but their areas of focus is going to be wealth, education, and I believe the other one is poverty. So I just want to encourage the staff to contribute. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Any other last-minute comments regarding points of personal privilege? No? Commissioner LeBron?
No, I think did you want to make a point of personal privilege?
I just wanted to make sure that you heard that I was saying yes to 829 and no to.
Oh, I reported it as a no to 829.
No, also I did. No, Superintendent Nelms thought that too. Yeah, so it was yes to 29.
Yes to 829 and no to 830.
Right.
Oh.
Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, so I just want to take a point of personal privilege as well to, one, thank the community and everyone who has been supporting me in reference to Tuesday night. I'm going to stand very strong and firm on the fact that I will not tolerate bullying, and I am going to ensure that my daughters also understand that they have a right to feel safe and not be attacked, both verbally or with physical intimidation and those types of tactics. So I just want to thank everybody, and I want to 100% ask this community with me to move forward. There is so much work to do in this district, and that is where I would like all of us in this community to focus on the work that has to get done, and putting kids first. And I ran on that slogan, and I ran on that because I wholeheartedly 100% believe that we have to put our children first. So I just want to take that point of personal privilege. Thank you.
All right, I need a motion to go into executive session. Anybody want to make that? Well, they're going to make the motion to go into executive session to discuss a particular person. I also think, particular employee, and I also understand there's some conversation that we have to get from our general counsel, legal advice. Is there such a motion by one of my colleagues?
Oh, and a resolution about a particular
I've already said that, about a particular person. Yeah, a particular employee. It's been moved by Commissioner Powell. Is there a second? Commissioner Shepard, you look,
Oh, I'll second.
Commissioner LeBron seconded it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. For those of you who are gladiators, you want to see us, we're going to adjourn from downstairs. So, good night. All right.